I talk about this often. I say I was the perfect combination of arrogant and ignorant. And I really couldn't imagine that it wasn't going to work. I was like, how hard can it be to run an agency? And so I was fortunate that I was that combination of arrogant and ignorant, because it allowed me to boldly step out into something that somebody with a little more sanity or a little more maturity might have really thought twice.
Cuando pensamos en la industria de agencias de publicidad, con frecuencia pensamos en una pequeña pero muy aguerrida comunidad de profesionales donde la competencia, incluso entre amigos, es simplemente feroz. Pero si algo he aprendido en todos estos años siendo parte de esta, es que no importa cuán dura sea la competencia y cuán críticos seamos del trabajo que se hace entre agencias y marcas, al final, en la vasta mayoría de los casos, quienes formamos parte de esta industria, hemos creado una comunidad donde la colaboración resulta muy importante. Y un ejemplo de esta generosidad entre colegas y competidores con frecuencia está en grandes líderes como mi invitado el día de hoy. Yo soy Efraín Mendicuti y he creado este espacio para conversar con distintos líderes de pensamiento, negocios, educación y cultura sobre su trayectoria, lecciones y mejores prácticas, y compartir así con todos nosotros su pensamiento, estrategias y recomendaciones tácticas para hacer en nuestras vidas de lo cotidiano algo extraordinario. Esto es Entre Mentores DLC. Autor y coeditor de los libros Age of Conversation 1, 2 y 3. Fundador y, como él dice, top dog de McLellan Marketing Group y el Agency Management Institute, y host del podcast Build a Better Agency. Acompáñenme a aprender del extraordinario Drew McLellan. Drew, I can't tell you how happy I am to be talking to you after all these years. And actually, I think it was like, 13 years, I guess, since Age of Conversation.
Yeah, it's been a long time. We have known each other for a very long time. Yep.
It's been quite a while. So thank you again, Drew, for being here in Entre Mentores. There are so many things that I want to discuss with you today. But before we move into that, why don't we start at the beginning? And why don't you share with us a little about who Drew is? What's the path that you've walked in the last years that have brought you to at this point in your life and your career?
Yeah, so I'm an agency guy. I've worked in advertising agencies my whole life. I started my own agency, McLellan Marketing Group, in 1995. So we're 25 this year in 2020. And like many agency owners, there's the client-facing side of the business, and then there's the business side of actually running the business. And so when I launched my own business, I realized very quickly that it was harder than it looked from the outside. And so I sought out some mentorship from people who had done it well before, and found an organization that was built to help agency owners learn how to run their business better. And lo and behold, I ended up buying that business and renaming it, rebranding it, Agency Management Institute. So now I basically have two jobs. I run my own agency still, and I help about 200 to 300 agency owners run their business better so that they can make more money and keep more of the money that they make.
That's really interesting. And actually, one of the first questions that I wanted to ask you precisely is how you've been working on your independent operation as an agency, because you just said it's been 25 years since you launched your independent agency. And I know that prior to that, you worked for some holding groups as well, no? Y&R, I think, yep. For instance. And, one thing that it's really interesting and a really a thing to respect and admire is that in this industry, especially in the last few years, where, all these holding companies have been growing by acquiring business instead of developing their own people and their talent. Yeah. Having an agency like yours, that's been here for 25 years and still going strong. It's like, what has been your approach, or how do you do it? Because you're not only managing your agency, but you're helping other agencies as well.
Yeah. So a couple of things I think contributed to our success over the years. One was that my goal was to hire really good people and then create an environment where they could do great work and be really well respected and appreciated so they didn't leave. So my agency is 25 years old. My average tenure of staff is about 17 years. So most of my people have been with me. And as you know, in the agency industry, that's not normal. Right?
That's people, like 10 times the normal.
Yeah. People are normally at an agency 2 or 3 or 4 years. And so I've been really blessed to be able to hang on to, now we've had some people come and go, of course, but my core team has been with us for a really long time. And so that longevity and that, it's like it's when you dance with the same partner for years, right? You just learn how to dance together better. And so as a team, we're better because we've been together for so long. So partially it was that. And then the other part of it too is, the agency business has gotten much more complicated and sophisticated as we have both grown in our careers. And so it was easier to be kind of a generalist agency back in the 80s, I think. But today it's very difficult for a small independent agency to try and be everything to everybody. And so probably 10 years ago or so, we niched down. And so we began to focus on a very small subset of potential customers so that we could really understand their industry. We understood the language they talked. We understood how they did business. So we could be better business partners to them. And so that's allowed us both to A, charge a premium price, B, to know exactly where our prospects are and how to go find them, and C, to earn their trust faster because we're a known expert in their space as well as our own.
That's great. I want to double click on what you just said, because it's like, most agencies still are trying to be generalists, actually, in this day and age. And of course, if you see what's going on across the industry globally, all these, all the large or the largest advertisers are constantly pitching their business, and you have not 2 or 3 agencies pitching for that business, but you have like 10, 20 agencies from, the largest holding groups to the smaller agencies. Everybody's trying to pitch for that. And what ends up happening is that, because also the advertiser will award the account temporarily to 10 different agencies at the same time. So nobody really gets to understand and know their business, right?
Right. Well, and the other trend that's happening, one of the things we do at AMI is we do primary research every year. And one of the trends we've seen for the last, 5-6 years, very few advertisers, very few brands only work with one agency anymore. They have relationships with 2, 3, 4, 5 agencies. And so again, it's very difficult to be a generalist in that space. What they're really looking for is they're looking for subject matter expertise. And that's what they're hiring. And so if an agency can come in and say, either we have a depth of knowledge in your industry, or we're better than anybody else at building out your Amazon marketplace, or whatever it is, you have a much better shot at getting a piece of that business as opposed to thinking you're going to get it all, because that just doesn't happen very much.
Absolutely. It's really interesting what that's happening. But then you mentioned that you guys are focusing or specializing, or decided to specialize 12 years ago on a very specific niche. Yeah. What niche is that, and on what type of business? Because even when you look at, and that I've been working on the media side for quite a while. Right. So I've been on the agency side for many, many years, but then also been very fortunate enough to work for Google, to work for Twitter now. And, even our operations on the media platform side, try to get very specialized. And that's why we work across verticals and not like everybody doing the same accounts, right?
Right.
So what niche are you more focused?
Yeah. So most of our clients sell something to a bank, a credit union, or an insurance company. So they range from teller drawers at the bank to a client that white labels credit cards and mortgages for credit unions. So we had a lot of banking experience. That was actually a lot of my experience at Y&R and some of the other agencies I worked at. I served a lot of bank clients. And so we understood the banking industry. And where I happen to live in the United States is the second largest market for insurance companies. So we understood banking. And when I say banking, I mean banks and credit unions and insurance. And so our clients are not the credit unions and the banks and the insurance companies. Our clients are people who want to sell stuff to the banks and the credit unions and the insurance companies. So like I said, teller drawers, that's a brick and mortar piece of equipment that banks and credit unions need to have inside their branches. So yes, we're doing a lot of client acquisition, a lot of lead generation, some brand building. We're also doing a lot of loyalty programs and share of wallet programs where we're trying to get more from our clients' existing customers. So it really is sort of looking at the lifespan of how they make revenue and figuring out where we can sort of flip some levers to try and get them another couple percentage points in market share or in new customers.
One thing that I wanted to ask you, thinking precisely about the work that you've been doing now also with the Agency Management Institute, does size matter? I mean, often a lot of advertising professionals are faced with the opportunity or the challenge of launching their own firm, right? And I think that one thing that holds them back, it's their own fears of not being big enough to deal with a new firm. So we'll have to start somewhere, right? So what's your thought? What are your thoughts around that?
I think when we think about what advertising agencies do and we think about the clients they serve, we immediately go to the Nikes and the Coca-Colas and the United Airlines or whatever. But the reality is less than 1% of all agencies are ever going to serve that kind of client. But there are a ton of mid-sized businesses that sell regionally or nationally or internationally that most people have never heard of because they just aren't a consumer brand. And so, an agency of 10 or 12 people can make a lot of money by, again, understanding who they serve, having a specialty or a niche that they can offer those people. So I think part of it depends on your vision of what you want your agency to be. Yes, if you want to serve, the top 20 international brands, then it's pretty tough to do as a 15 or 20 person agency. But, I've got agencies that we work with that are 100 people that are serving major liquor brands, that are serving major, pharmaceutical brands. So you don't have to be 500 people or 1,000 people or 3,000 people to land that business. But there's also a lot of business. If you want to run a business of 25 people, there are plenty of people out there. There are plenty of brands out there that you can help and grow and make a very healthy living for you and your employees.
One of the things that I often discuss with the companies and professionals that I get to help as a coach is precisely that. Think of who's your best client. There's a book that I love, two books that I love. One is Paul Jarvis' Company of One, and the other one is The Pumpkin Plan.
Yeah, it's a great one. Yep.
It's a great one, right? And one of the things that I keep saying is, or telling the people that I get to coach is precisely decide who your best clients are.
Right.
And often it doesn't have to be like the big or the largest advertising names or brands out there, because in the end, you do have to have a very specific structure to be able to manage those type of brands, because you will have to give them special credit. The payment terms can be
really terrible.
90 days, 120, 180 days, etc. So sometimes, or oftentimes rather, working with smaller advertisers can be a game changer for an agency, right?
Well, and for a lot of agencies, there's money that passes through your agency, like a media buy or something like that, yes, you get paid for it, but you have to pay someone else that money. Right. You're just the pass through. And then there's money that you get to keep for the work you do. And the bigger the brand, the larger percentage of their budget is media dollars. So
Mhm.
they may have a $3 million budget, but 2.5 million of that just passes through the door and right back out. So, a small or mid-sized client that needs a broader array of things. They need help with sales materials. They need help with their email marketing. They need help with their PPC or their SEO. That's all money that the agency can do the work for and actually keep all of the money. So in some ways, the larger clients oftentimes aren't as profitable as the
So
smaller mid-sized clients because you get to actually keep more of the money that you charge them.
absolutely. So why are so many agencies just focusing on this maybe 3% of the advertisers of the world instead
Yeah.
of going to and trying to fish in a bigger ocean,
Yeah. Well, as
right?
you know, some of it's ego, right? Everybody wants to have a brand that they can brag about. Some of it is the misperception of the size of their budget and how much of that is going to actually impact the agency. Some of it is that, those big agencies, and I think we're seeing this all around the world, with the pandemic, a lot of, so the agencies that we work with, so I would say 100 people or less in their agency, most of them are having a great year. They're busy, they're profitable, whereas most of the holding companies have laid off 20 to 50% of their staff and they're barely hanging on. So there's also something to be said about, being a little smaller, a little more nimble. A lot of our agencies started offering things that they had never offered before because their clients needed them because of the pandemic. And they were able to
Hmm.
pivot very quickly. It's hard to pivot a 6,000 person agency. It's pretty easy to
Absolutely.
pivot a 30-person agency.
Absolutely. One thing also that I want to double click on about what you shared earlier about, how long or the tenure of the people in your team. Having, I guess after 17 years, you can no longer call them just employees. I guess it's like family. It's like,
Oh, yeah.
it's no, you've been together for a long time. And one of the things that I also like about that, and I'm trying to read between the lines here, is that it's very positive because one of the biggest problems I think the advertising world is facing is ageism, right? And actually, there was quite a scandal a few weeks ago because of the CEO of a holding company discussing
A
something
plethora
wrong.
of things that he
No?
should not, right? Yes.
Exactly. So I don't want to talk about the negative side, but rather
Yeah.
focus on the positive. And I think that ageism is something that it's a challenge in the industry. It's a problem in the industry, and sometimes, or oftentimes, agencies or within holding companies try to, just keep the blood fresh, like just having young folks working for them because they might be interested in working or willing to work longer hours, but then you lose the craft, right? And the art.
Yeah. And actually, the current generations of younger employees have no desire to work longer. So when you and I started in the business, you knew you had to pay your dues. You knew you were going to work 60-hour work weeks and you were going to work late at night and you were going to work on the weekend. That was just what we did to break into the business and to prove to the owners of the agency that we were committed and that we wanted to keep growing and getting better. That's not happening today in a lot of agencies. So there's value, of course, in any business of having a variety of ages, so you have different perspectives and all of that. But one of the nice things about having people who have been in the business for a while is to your point, they really have honed their craft. They're really good at what they do, which makes them faster and more efficient, which makes them more profitable for the business. They also are through some of the life stuff that happens in your 20s and 30s where, there's always a sick kid or something else is happening. So their lives are more stable, which allows them to be more consistent in terms of their performance and they show up every day. And I also think that, in our business, clients want to work with somebody who has some business acumen. And it's very difficult to have a lot of business acumen when you're 23 years old and you just got out of college. So I think the ideal agency has a blend of ages so that you have the perspectives of all those ages, but you can also tap in to the skill sets and talents appropriately of the people who have been with you 10 years versus a year or whatever that may be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you just touched on I wasn't planning on going there, but you just touched on a very important subject, which is business acumen. One of the challenges that I know I had as an advertising professional is that, my focus for many years was on coming up with the right strategies and the right creative to help my clients. And I've been very fortunate to be able to work with, different brands from many different categories, from liquors to banks, to financial services, to travel companies, to brands like Disney. I know that you're a big Disney fan, just like me. So being very lucky on that front. But then you get to focus on all these different brands, and it's hard to build business acumen because you're focusing on a very specific task. You're focused on a very specific work that you have to do. So what do you recommend? Because maybe a creative director wants to remain a creative director for their entire career,
right?
But maybe they want to have their own agency,
right?
Maybe and they have to learn business acumen then. And is that something that you work at the Agency Management Institute?
Yeah, we talk about it a lot. I think today clients want us to not just be smart about marketing, but they need us to be smart about the business, and they need us to talk to them about distribution channels and all kinds of business elements that may or may not have anything to do with what we produce for them, but all of it works together or it doesn't work together, right? So we've got to be well-rounded and be able to have those conversations. And a lot of agencies don't invest enough time and allow their employees to really learn their client's business, to shadow the salespeople, to go to a trade show and sit at the booth and listen to what people are asking, to go on the factory floor for a day or two and watch how they make the thing that they sell. We've got to be willing to invest time and energy in learning our client's business. And I think the other thing that happens in our business is we're afraid to ask questions. We're so afraid that the client will think we don't know what we're doing. But the reality is we have to ask great questions to learn enough about their business that we can be great advisors to them. And a good client will welcome that.
Absolutely. And the only way to learn is by asking. Nobody is born knowing everything. So yeah, I agree with you. So Drew, in the intro to the episode, I mentioned that despite the advertising industry being very, very competitive and fierce in that sense, it is also an industry where the vast majority of professionals are also very generous, I think, and willing to share. There are some exceptions, of course, but I think that in the vast majority of cases, and I've been, again, very lucky to be able to work for agencies in Mexico, in the US, and across the Americas. And I've only met people who is very generous in that sense and wants to share knowledge. At the same time, it's funny how many very, very bright people who have literally helped hundreds of companies build their business don't think about building their own business.
Well, I think there's two things. I think one of the best ways to build your business is to be of that generous spirit. So I just spent the last 2 days. So one of the things we do at AMI is we have peer groups of agency owners. So imagine a room of 25 agency owners, all from different markets, coming together for 2 days. They show each other their financials. They share their best practices. They share all their secrets with each other, with the idea of this collective hive. If I share what I know and I absorb everything that all these other people know, I actually walk away with more than what I gave, because 25 people all shared what they know. So I got 24 other people's best practices, templates, tools, hiring practices, whatever it may be, and I just had to share mine. And so I think the best way to grow your business is to be willing to be a part of something that is bigger than you, where you can learn. When you teach, you learn. So I think if you can go someplace where you both learn and teach, and you can do that with generosity, that comes back to your business multifold, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. It might not come back immediately, but it always comes back. Right. Always. Absolutely. Absolutely. So Drew, let me change lanes for a moment. With all the things that you've done in your career and all the ups and downs, and as an author, as a podcaster, as a speaker as well, and an agency owner, with everything that you've done, if Doc Brown were to show at your door with his DeLorean, and give you the keys to the DeLorean, to what point in time would you travel? Would you travel to the future or to the past? Not necessarily to talk to yourself, although if you wanted to do so, that's fine. But to what point in time would you travel back to see or learn what?
It's interesting because my mind goes two places. One, I have a 27-year-old daughter, so my first mind goes back to going back to when she was a toddler and, would hold my hand and sit on the couch and watch movies with me. But professionally, I think of mistakes that I've made along the way, or choices that I made that led to a hard time or a challenge. And so my first reaction is I would go back and undo those or fix those. But honestly, I'm not sure I would be as fortunate today if I didn't go through those things, right? Because I learned so much about myself as a leader, how to be a better business owner, all of those things. So I guess I'm trying to decide if I would go into the future or if that would ruin the surprise. Like part of being a business owner is you make all these plans and then, life happens and the plans are never quite on point, right? You can be kind of in the same lane, but you're usually never quite right. So, I honestly think I would give you the keys back. I don't think I would go. I think I would just say, you know what? I'm not willing to risk changing the past because that might change where I'm at now. And part of the fun as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, is the game of figuring it out and pivoting as you need to, as challenges and opportunities are presented to you. So if I already knew how the game ended, I think it would be less fun to play.
I really love that answer. You're the first person who tells me I would not take the keys. That's cool. So if I listened correctly and I did my math correctly, when you launched the McLellan Marketing Group, your daughter was 2. Is she your oldest?
She's my only. Yeah.
So how did you deal back then, 25 years ago, with a 2-year-old daughter?
Yeah.
How did you decide to move ahead and open take the risk and launch your own operation and go all the way?
So I talk about this often. I say I was the perfect combination of arrogant and ignorant. I was, about 30 years old, and I really couldn't imagine that it wasn't going to work. I was like, how hard can it be to run an agency? And so I was fortunate that I was that combination of arrogant and ignorant because it allowed me to boldly step out into something that somebody with a little more sanity or a little more maturity might have really thought twice about. Do you really want to risk losing your house? And, you have this toddler at home that you have to feed every day and all of that. But I know this sounds crazy, and I will credit my parents with this, but it never occurred to me that it wouldn't work. And so I was raised to believe that if you're willing to work hard enough, you can do anything you want to do. And so that core belief inside me that my parents instilled really allowed me to step out and just know that it was going to be okay. I had no idea what that meant, and I certainly had no idea how hard it was going to be in moments. But I just knew I would land on my feet one way or the other, and knock on wood. Some years far better than others, of course. But it's been a successful ride so far.
I love how you put it. The right combination of ignorance and arrogance. And also, it's like we all have to understand that we'll have the capacity to figure things out. Like right. In the end, we're going to have to go through it, and just figure it out, right?
Yeah.
There's no there's no cop out. We cannot say okay, time out. I'm done. No, you just have to go through it. So,
and you know what? The reality today is you take just as big of a risk by working for someone else, right? There's no guarantee that you're going to have that job forever. There's no guarantee that that business owner is going to run the business well and not have to close it down. There's no guarantee that a younger, faster, smarter person is going to push you aside and take the promotion you wanted. And so I think life is about being afraid and still taking the risk. That's what we have to do personally and professionally. We are guaranteed nothing. We have no crystal ball.
Absolutely.
If we don't have the keys to the DeLorean, we never know how it plays out. So you can either get stuck in that fear, or you can carry the fear with you as you step out into the opportunity.
Absolutely. And I agree with you. Nothing is guaranteed. Actually, it doesn't matter how hard you work, and if you decide to not go on the entrepreneur side of things and just be an employee and work for an organization, even it doesn't matter how hard you work, how passionate you are, and how much you deserve things. No one owes you anything anyway in the end. So there are no guarantees.
And the reality is, again, whichever path you choose, the one guarantee there is on occasion, you're going to get knocked to your knees. Something's going to happen that's going to sort of take the wind out of your sails, or, that something's going to happen that you didn't anticipate. And the outcome of that temporarily is bad. But now you have the opportunity to pick a different path or to choose something different. And I think a lot of being human is about the endurance that we have to just keep at it and to keep chasing our dreams, again, personal or professional, whatever it is that is fulfilling for you. The road's going to be bumpy either way, so you might as well chase after the things that you want.
Absolutely. It's just a matter of choosing, right? Yeah, absolutely. Right. So one question that I always ask as well is, what is the worst advice that you've listened to in your career? That one advice that you after you took it, you thought to yourself, what the hell was I thinking when I listened to it?
Yeah. So this was before I started the agency. And the advice was, I got recruited by a headhunter and for a significant uptick in salary. And the advice was to take the job because the money was better. And less than a year later, I left that agency to start my own agency. So there's a great example of a decision that I made that was bad, that I thought just because, I almost was probably a third again my salary. So it was a big chunk of money difference. It completely changed, the kind of house we could buy and all kinds of other things. But it wasn't enough. The job was miserable. My boss was a miserable human being. The environment was toxic. And so there's a great example of I could go back in the DeLorean and change that. But it was that experience that made me so miserable that I started my own agency. So what if I hadn't had a miserable experience? I'd probably be somebody else's employee today, right? So it's, but I think everybody in their career takes a job for money. And most of the time that doesn't work out so well. Yes, we have to take care of our families and ourselves and make a decent living, but there's so much more than the financial compensation that comes to what we get out of a job.
Absolutely. The thing about crappy bosses, and I think that we all should have one or two, maybe more crappy bosses in our career. It's good. It's a good thing. Like for the moment, at the moment, we hate them, and it's a horrible situation, but they teach us so much.
Oh gosh, yeah.
So much about what not to do, how to behave, how to treat other people, how to be better bosses ourselves. No,
absolutely. That was the mantra in my head for years when I started the business. Was I would think about what that bad boss would do, and I would do whatever the opposite of that was. Like I just knew that I didn't ever want to be a business owner or a boss like him, and it really helped me stay very clear, in alignment with my own values and purpose, to create an environment that people wouldn't feel the way I did about that job.
So speaking about values and purpose, in an industry where we help or we spend, I don't know, the vast majority of our time helping brands state their purpose.
Yeah.
No, how do you help other advertising professionals understand their purpose? I remember the reason why I ask this is because I remember a few years ago, one of my clients, it was a university. So basically we were doing lead generation for the university. And I remember that the creative director back then, and this is back in 2005, I think, or 6. And we were doing one of the, it was very early on lead generation and direct response campaigns online, right? And I remember the creative director saying, like, I hate that all we do is just doing banner ads for a university. Like, and I was like, no, dude, we're not doing that. Right. What we're actually doing is we're helping students connect with the opportunity of building a career and learning a profession.
Right.
That's the purpose. That you have to go deeper. So how do you work with your partners and your clients on that front?
Well, I think it's the exact same kind of conversation, right? Like we start with the question of if your business got sucked into a black hole and didn't exist anymore, who pays the price for that? What is lost in the world if you're not here anymore? And once you get really clear about how you actually change your little sliver of the world, because every business does, we don't change the global world, but we certainly change our little circle in the world. Mm-hmm. Once you understand that you have impact and you have influence, then it's pretty easy to use that as your true north to make decisions around. So if for example, in my world on the AMI side, my job is very clear. My job is to help agency owners be more successful so they can create great workplaces and take care of their families better. That's my job, because as you know, a lot of agency owners don't make a lot of money because they make a lot of mistakes. So my job is to help them avoid all of those mistakes so that they can create a business that is a great employer and serves them and their family. So if that's my purpose, then it's pretty easy for me to make decisions about my business in terms of, is this a good idea or is that a bad idea? It also helps me set prices and new offerings and all of those things, because I'm really clear on why I do the work that I do. And the pandemic made that very clear. I've probably never made less money and been more busy than I have been in 2020, but I helped a lot of agency owners save their agencies, save people's jobs. And I was fine with that because that's why I'm here. That's my job, right?
Love it. Speaking about leaders and speaking about leadership, I hold the premise that, or theory that for a leader to be as productive as you are, and you've written and edited and published books, with the Age of Conversation, you managed to, with Gavin, you managed to round up over 100 professionals across the entire world, all willing to spend time writing and pouring their minds into a series of books that then you then published. So that is amazing. So for someone to be as productive as you are, and you did that running your agency at the same time, doing the Management Institute as well. So you have to adopt and integrate routines and habits that help you stay productive. What habits have you adopted and integrated into your life that help you today be as productive?
Well, I think one of the things that's true is busy people are more productive. When you don't have a lot of idle time, you sort of have to get to it because you don't have a lot of wiggle room in the deadlines. I also think people in our industry, in the agency business, we're so deadline driven for clients and all of that, and you can't miss a deadline. So I think those two things help shape me. But honestly, for me, that it's ridiculously simple. But at the end of the day, I know what my 3 biggest priorities are for the next day. And I try and knock out at least 2 of them before noon. And then obviously I try and get the 3rd one done before the end of the day. But if I don't get it done by the end of the day, then the end of my day just gets extended. So it is unacceptable for me to not get those 3 priorities done in the day, because I'm just deadline driven.
I love that. You know, I just did a TED Talk a few weeks ago, and precisely the idea that I shared was the big 3s. And actually that's a book I'm working on. It's called The Big 3s. Yep. And it's what are your top 3 priorities? Yep. Despite everything else, like, doesn't matter how many things you have to do. What are the 3 things that you have to do today that will actually help you move the needle for the week, for the month, for the quarter, for the year? Right?
Yep. Yeah, I have a huge to-do list that's got dozens and dozens of things. And I know I have to get all of them done eventually. But I know what my 3 are. And
absolutely,
I find that if it's more than 3, then I struggle to get them all done. But if I am committed to the 3, then I deliver every day. And that's how a chapter of a book gets done, or that's how a podcast gets recorded, or that's how an employee review gets done. You just keep moving that through.
Absolutely. You know, I used to call them the big 5s. And then I started working on the book and started doing more research and studying certain subjects, and that's when I decided to really go to just the big 3s, because of the law of diminishing results, or returns. Sorry, the diminishing returns. If you focus on 5 or more, you're going to achieve 0. If you focus between around 5, you might get 2 objectives. But if you focus on 3, the possibilities of you actually achieving those 3 objectives gets exponentially higher. So
and I do it 7 days a week, and the 3 things on my list aren't always business things.
Absolutely.
Right? It might be have lunch with my daughter and be present. It might be whatever it may be, but every day I have 3 priorities that I have to honor.
I couldn't agree with you more. Love it. I want to be very respectful of your time. So before we move on to the final question, where can people listening to us right now connect with you? And actually, one question I wanted to ask you is, are agency owners from outside the U.S. able to connect with you and participate with the Management Institute?
Of course, yeah. We have clients in many countries.
That's great.
So so the easiest way to get me is probably to start at agencymanagementinstitute.com. But on all the social channels, I'm very easy to find. It's just Drew McLellan, and McLellan is McLellan. So happy to connect with people on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, any of those places. My username is exactly the same, because back in the day when all those things started, people weren't grabbing usernames back when you and I were young and just starting in all of this. So you were able to get your own name back then.
Exactly. Yeah. Plus, it helps not having a usual or a common name.
Yeah, right. Bob Smith would be harder. Yep.
Right. Same with me. Efraín Mendicut. It's like it's me and my dad. So anyway, Drew, the whole premise of this podcast is to learn from leaders like you how you turn the day-to-day stuff into something extraordinary.
I think it's about purpose, right? I think when you know who you are serving and you know the impact and that your service is for them, I think it elevates your work. So there's one of my favorite business books is a book called Radical Leap by a guy named Steve Farber. And his thing is do work you love in service of people who love your work. And so for me, I love my work and I love the people that I get to help. And so that they reciprocate back and appreciate what I do, which just inspires me to do better and more tomorrow than I did today. So that's my trick is I care about the people that I serve, and I just want to get better at it every day.
Love it. You know that Phil, a common friend that we have, Phil Gerbishak.
Yep.
We recorded an episode a few weeks ago, and great minds think alike. He also mentioned Steve, and he also quoted him. Yep. You know, and that quote is one that I really like also.
Yeah, it's great. Steve Farber is a great guy, and it's a if people have not read the book Radical Leap, I highly recommend it. It's a fantastic business book, and it's all about love. It's about loving your work. It's about loving the people that you serve. It's about loving your coworkers. And when you can create an environment where you actually genuinely care about all the people in that ecosystem, that solves a lot of problems right off the bat.
Absolutely. Drew, I want to thank you for your time. And also before we say goodbye, just acknowledge you for the amazing work that you're doing. Thank you for the work that you're doing with the Agency Management Institute. I think it's great that agencies, not only in the US, but from other countries, can be part of it as well. So thank you for that work. I was telling Phil the other day that we should do kind of an Age of Conversation meetup or something.
Yep.
You know, I know that the three of us are really big Disney fans, big Disney World fans. So we should one day meet there.
You name the date and I am there anytime.
Perfect. Excellent. Thank you very much, Drew.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Have an amazing week and take care, my friend.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Y muchas gracias también a todos ustedes por escucharnos en este episodio de Entre Mentores DLC. Recuerden suscribirse y compartir este y todos los episodios de Entre Mentores DLC, porque estoy seguro que entre sus amigos, familiares y colegas hay por lo menos una persona que se puede beneficiar muchísimo de las historias y consejos que grandes mentores como nuestros invitados el día de hoy tienen que compartir. Muchas gracias también a Ricolto Café, el mejor café de México, por acompañarme en esta aventura de vida todos los días. Yo soy Efraín Mendicuti y esto es Entre Mentores DLC. Hasta la próxima. Thank you very much, Drew.
You bet. Good for us to finally have this face-to-face. Next time we see each other, Disney World.
You got it.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.